we'll bring the Parkland Shade Tree Commission meeting to order. Is there any public comment?
No, thank you.
All right, let's move on to, is there anything we need to talk about with the tree diseases or bugs or insects, anything?
I thought we were going to take that off the agenda, actually.
We took
we
took
took the landfill slides
Oh,
off.
I gotcha.
I mean, if there's anything, if
Well, I
there's
can,
no
I can bring up
updates.
the bacteria leaf scorch. I've been getting a lot of questions on that due to the dryness. It's something that's very tough to maintain and take care of. It's bacteria that gets into the xylem due to it's spread through leaf hopper. We just got to monitor it, and you, at some point you usually cut the trees down when it's that
It's
bad.
on, just on oak trees, is that correct?
Majority of it is on pin oaks and red oaks.
Yeah.
Not on all oaks, not on white oaks or swamp whites or chestnut oaks. It's more on a red oak and pin oak.
Do they prefer a certain age tree or
No,
younger, older, more vulnerable
no,
to this thing?
it's not discriminatory to any age. It's just
Does it spread?
what's that?
Does it spread from tree
It
to
spreads
tree?
slowly through the
Slowly.
insect is the vector.
It's from the
is
leaf
what
hopper,
spreads
okay.
it. Yes, I mean I have it. If you want information.
Greg knows more than me, but from what I recall from previous discussions about this, if you have a very damp spring, it makes it worse. Is that correct or not
No,
correct?
that's
Not correct.
incorrect. It's the opposite. The
Oh.
drier it is, the worse it spreads. It's the dryness and we have had a dry summer and spring. So
Yeah.
that's why we're seeing a lot more of it this year.
I don't know, if you look at the weather chart on the back of the Rainy Eagle, there's a few of us who get the Rainy Eagle, it shows that we're ahead of rainfall, we're ahead of normal, and we're ahead of 2023.
Wow.
It's hard to believe.
It is,
Yeah.
especially if you look at the last
The
month.
June was
We're
nice,
ahead of it.
but August and September was, and that's when it spreads the worst.
Okay. Is there any other pertinent issues with diseases or
Nope.
insects or anything?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just one for me.
Yeah, go ahead.
The beech tree, there's a new disease on those. It's hard to determine whether or not, when they come in. Have you seen anything?
What's this again?
It's a beech tree.
The beech
borer.
tree.
Beech tree.
Yes.
Not,
Not really.
You're
We
looking.
don't have many beech trees that are street trees in the borough. We do have some in the parks. And they do have some issues with the board,
Okay. We're just talking about tree diseases right now. Lucy, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I mean, I guess we can mention what was discussed, but what I think is going to happen, I think we'll all kind of discuss down in under number 6. But has anything big happened as far as fall prep plans? Do we have our new little leaf sucker?
Our 300,000 big leaf suckers.
Yeah.
Yes, we
We
do.
do. That's good. The
But it's hard keeping up. The acorns and leaves are dropping fast and early, and it's hard to keep up.
The acorns are terrible this year. Yeah, is there anything else you guys want to talk about in terms of what's been happening this fall?
I have a list of stuff of what we did work-wise
Yeah.
until kind of now and some upcoming stuff.
Okay.
So through the summer and the time, we'd work together with the tree department. We trimmed a lot of Museum Road, mainly the one side to go back through there for the road and for safety. We planted a dogwood down at the Stone House. That was requested from a resident that was there. That we put that right by the wall, by the bench. This is just a hit on a couple of things that we did. So we cut a lot of the tree line back, the brush line and things back, like around the playgrounds, everything, to get the encroaching stuff down. Try to clean that up a bit. We did the viewing platform, like below the barn, below the Hewitt house. There's actually some pictures here. I'm gonna pass it around to see it. We did benches, what we kind of call the permanent benches that are posed in the ground with the top on and not the removable ones. We did quite a few of those. We've been doing a lot of street mowing along the roads around throughout the whole borough. We have a little bit to go with that yet, finishing up with that. We started yesterday blowing leaves, cleaning the trails, cleaning the stuff around some of the park areas where it was the worst, and we got, the equipment maintenance and inspection, with that stuff. The upcoming stuff is we're getting ready for winter and for the fall prep for things, all the snow plow, winter stuff, snow blowers, yeah, all that stuff. We're going through getting the holiday lights ready for the stuff for the stone house and the circle. And for too long, we're gonna be in with leaf picking and leaf blowing cleanup. That'll be the next till the end of the year.
Thank you. This is the one with the Rotary Club? This platform is the one with the Rotary Club?
Yes,
It's very
Sponsored?
nice.
yes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It looks great. You guys do a great job. Do they have plaque suggestions yet or no?
No.
It's too bad they would be getting credit.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. Are you gonna be mowing the fields at the end of the fall?
No, they won't,
not
there
this
won't
way?
be any mowing in the fields until March of next year.
Okay. And there's a bench, which is, if you're in the, Highlands parking lot, you go down the hill into the woods, not on the gravel path, but just, if you were parking and went down,
At the edge of the pines.
yeah, it's really big holes in that bench. Could that, any chance that could be on the list?
That one and a couple of the other ones are kind of on the agenda. We're kind of playing it by ear a little bit now because we're having a tough time getting another lumber order for next year. I've been on the phone with them quite a bit. I don't know, still kind of up in the air, so, we were kind of due like priority stuff, but yes, we might. And the other thing is we have this week and next week to finish up a lot of stuff, and then we're probably gonna be to leave, so.
It's not hurt.
That's on, if we can work it in, yes, that's one of the things. If not, it might have to ride till next year. But if we can, if the posts are okay enough, we can kind of scab something on it to put it on the top one for time being. That's what we had done
Yeah,
with some of the others. So,
looks like I'm good enough for that.
yeah.
At Refuse and Recycling, Rotary talked about a project where they gathered plastic bags and turned them in and got plastic benches.
Yes, they did. Have you heard about this program?
I have not.
It's through tracks.
That's right, through, truck stacking. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard about it. It's, basically the borough takes the initiative to collect trash bags and drop them at certain locations.
But individuals can do it too.
Individuals, yeah, the individuals do
not the
it
borough.
Like
on behalf
giant,
of the
like
borough.
giant.
Yeah,
Like
Giant
shopping
will
bags.
take them, Giant will, like, yeah, there's certain locations that'll take them, so the borough residents drop them there and say, this batch is for the Wyomissing borough. And once we hit a certain number weight-wise, or whatever it is, then we get a bench donated to us, made out of the recycled plastic bag tracks decking material.
They appear attractive.
As a Rotarian, my
Yes.
understanding is that they actually wanted to do a collection event for bags out, like anywhere they come in from. I mean, I can tell you whenever we have a Rotary meeting, bring your bags. Like the Rotarians are also bringing their own bags to donate. So
Okay.
they were suggesting the possibility of when they collect enough to get to a bench, could that next bench go to us? But outside of that, I would think, yes, we could also start our own program where if residents want to, bring their bags here, we could just create a drop-off bin and then we turn them over, send them to tracks, and we get benches.
Does that include white and black plastic?
I'm sorry?
Does that include white and black?
I'm not aware that there's any
They
color.
didn't give us any color. They didn't
Any
say no, they didn't give.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No.
I can certainly find out.
Yeah, no, a picture of what the bench looks like, really.
It's that like,
I could go back and, I know I have one, do I have it
Yeah,
handy?
yeah.
No, but I could get you one.
I don't know how they are. I dealt with them before, like around the other county where I worked before, and they were pretty nice. They worked out very good in a lot of ways for us. They're very durable.
yeah,
And the thing that we liked about them is they're very heavy. So
yeah.
you don't have to worry about people just, you're not gonna move them.
Right. Yeah, I can't
I'll
So
see what I
I
can
don't
find
know
for
that
you.
it falls within refuse and recycling particularly, and there's no EAC, so.
Yeah.
I guess that's on the list of what we could have done if we'd had an EAC.
I think we can still do it. Jen, if you don't mind, I wanted to take a moment I shared this letter with the Park and Shade Commission. Greg, whose last name is Capriolo, not Caprioco, cause they were fixing water main break until 7:30 this morning and started at midnight?
Started
Yes.
noon yesterday.
Slacker,
sorry.
slacker.
They did an almost 24-hour water main break fix.
Oh,
But Greg received this letter from a resident, which is complimenting the Parks Department as to the work that they do. And we seem to get more negative comments than positive, so I wanted to share this for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Did you guys get a chance to see this yet?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
read it.
you've seen it, yeah. No, it's great. Very cool.
Should we send it to the people across from the fountain, the duck pond?
I prefer not to put that
Okay, do we have any other questions or discussion on?
At what point are the trees picked for the next year? Because at some point, I'm hoping we can circle back to the blankety blank trees on the 1600 block of Dauphin, which the residents hate, which you all seem to prefer as a monument to.
Mm-hmm.
And they are described by the residents as filthy.
Oh, no,
Linden oak,
Yeah.
Lindens,
They
yeah.
have to
Little
be,
leaf lindens.
they have to be twice a week instead of the normal every week or, I mean,
Once a week as opposed to once a month.
but people hate them, so why aren't we listening to the residents? I mean, who cares that Toon wanted a linden tree? I mean,
I don't know if it's that we're listening to, or not listening to complaints. It's,
There's nothing wrong with those trees.
they're
I'm not
relative to
saying
health.
take them down, just when you replace them,
It's
why
time
put
to
those
replace.
things back?
I'm not. I'm changing it up a little bit. I have not.
Okay,
There is some that I do put it back in.
okay.
They do. Some people do like them. And you got a lot of people that don't. But
But we
and I do agree, they are higher maintenance than some trees.
Yeah, so why are we inflicting that on
We're
the
working on you
borough,
guys.
our budget, your staff? I think you have a few other things to do. Just guessing, but.
Just two things, and I'm not agreeing or disagreeing, but, on the right day, and you drive down Dolphin Avenue, it's like you're in a cave. It's an awesome movie set, if you will, you know, I think. But again, there's problems that come with that. And if you start switching up, like, certain streets you guys have been for a decade now, trying to switch things up, but there's something to be said for,
Continuity. The aesthetically visual,
It's aesthetic, it's
not saying I
monoculture,
agree.
keeping on certain streets. Now, some streets like Garfield, for example, I cannot put ash back because you cannot buy ash, just the government won't allow it to be planted in the nurseries anymore.
Right.
So that is getting changed to, I would say, we're putting river birch and Katsura trees in. But now you also have the ash yet, so you do have 3 different trees on that street.
That's how I hate river birch trees.
What's that?
I hate the river birches street trees. There's one in my yard. It's just
But I mean,
constantly hanging
that's one of my
down to the
favorite
sidewalk.
trees.
I know.
But I mean, just from the
That's
act
trees.
of like replacing a tree, we're kind of breaking the, the LA effect that we're getting, that if we're, even if we're replacing it with the same tree, it's not, we don't have
That
that
height.
effect
yeah.
yet.
Right.
Yes.
So,
Okay, but
Yeah.
if the residents don't.
no, I'm with you. I have
Yeah.
a client on Dolphin, and every time I'm out there, they are like, I have to sweep my sidewalk every day because it's, but like, so what I'm saying is that like, because even if we were to replace them with lindens, it's not gonna have that same effect really ever again, because we're replacing half now and then the other half in 10 or so years,
Yeah.
and so it'll always have some discrepancies. So transitioning the species isn't, you know, it's still gonna look asymmetrical, I guess is what I was just trying to.
But didn't we learn with the chestnut white and the Dutch elm disease, that we don't wanna put long avenues with the same tree?
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
Yes.
That monoculture is a problem, but
Yeah.
there's
But it
also
is
the great
beautiful, I
visual of the
agree.
way it is now.
Yeah.
You know,
We're ending the era though of that perfect visual, because we're hitting the point where all of our trees are like pushing
Yeah.
100 years old. So those trees that still have that monoculture street, they're gonna start dying off.
Yeah.
And so it's gone. And like even if you add the same trees, it's gonna take another
But
50
it
to
doesn't
100
take
years.
as long as, I mean, in a
No, but-
lifetime, it doesn't take as long as it takes, because I'll give Reading Boulevard in the 1500 block an example. When I came 28 years ago, we started losing some of them trees on the south side. If you look at it now, they have become mature trees. They so you do get that back, but it takes 20 years.
Yeah,
Trees will outlive us.
Hopefully.
well, the birch
Yeah.
won't. The birch
But,
won't.
in
Now, let me
general.
ask you, when you plant street trees, do you confer with the resident who lives at that spot?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
We like to keep it organized.
Okay.
I do.
The biggest problem, I think, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, is that some people don't, when you remove a tree, some people say, I don't want a tree back.
Yeah.
And
In
we-
certain circumstances, we may not replace it due to infrastructure. You
Right.
know, between water, sewer, gas, cable now. But we like to put one back where it was taken down,
Mhm.
but that's within general. We tried keeping it at 50 feet years ago on Dolphin. It was 35 feet, so if we could stretch it out a little more, I do.
Right, okay.
But it-
But if we go to that resident and say, like, we definitely need a tree here, whether you like it or not, I don't know, and
Yeah.
these are the three
It happens, yeah,
options.
we have to force them to take a tree, some people can't. You know.
As a resident, I would like the borough to give me a piece of paper saying, we have planted this kind of tree. We would appreciate it, if it's true, that you would water it once a week for the first year or something, because you guys can't do that, and that it might make it more likely the tree's going to live. And it's sort of, I think you
Do we ever
feel
put the
like you have more ownership. If they put a little black plastic around the base.
Do they put the, what, do you guys put the gator bags on them, or no, I haven't seen
No.
that.
We tried that as an experiment.
That works within reason.
Yeah.
I still gotta go out and water, so you're still spending the same, not the same amount of time, but then you gotta go back and take them off. So it's just as easy for us to spend an extra 10 minutes instead of coming back.
Right.
So we just gotta make more effort of it's tough to determine the weather. We did not know it was gonna be a very dry August.
Yeah, this is.
So it became a little tough on us. I lost 5% of the trees instead of usually 1% of the trees. So we didn't lose them all, we lost a few, but just noticeable. So,
Yeah.
you know, we got behind on the watering process. Once you notice them dying back, it's a little too late.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it might be worth at least going to them and saying, we're looking at these 2 or 3 options as trees, do you have a preference?
And I usually when a resident asks me that, I do. We do give them an option.
Okay.
Yeah. Majority of the time, they want the same tree back in. I would say 90% of the time. Huh?
I said, I would tell you, I will not request a birch when
Or
this
be
thing dies.
glad you don't live in a neighborhood that has the sweet gum trees.
Oh, there's sweet gums up there. On,
Those are even
yeah,
worse than the
there's
linden.
sweet gums
Yeah.
up on
You're
Grandview
not
that I have to
replacing
walk
them with
around.
library.
No.
We are replacing them with sweet gums, but they're seedless sweet gums.
Okay.
I do replace them. Now, out Lincoln Court, we've been losing a lot because there's a bacteria issue out there too, bacteria canker. So a lot of them are coming down. And I may not be replacing them with sweet gums. We'll put something else in.
Have you thought about increasing street trees in certain areas?
What's that?
Increasing the street trees in certain areas in the hills or Berkshire Heights is
Where,
beautiful too.
from the past, basically, it's been that when somebody calls us, we'll add that. If they want a street tree, we add it, if there wasn't
Okay.
one there.
Okay,
And that would be maybe something you could put in the newsletters.
okay.
You
Yeah.
know. I don't go
Yeah, 'cause
around.
there's definitely far
We
fewer
haven't
there,
gone
but
around.
again, they
I
want
have
different
several
borough.
over there this year that we are, there's one on Deborah. He's getting 2 this fall, and also on Winter. They requested one.
When do you place your orders?
I did today.
And so it's a once a year?
No,
order?
twice a year, spring and fall. I did the fall. The fall list is a little smaller because we just don't have time to get the trees in, and there is some fall hazards, so you gotta watch where you put it. Oaks are a fall hazard. That's rough to put in at that time of the year. I've been staying with a lot of maples at this time. They do a lot better.
All right, anybody have anything else? Lucy, anything?
No, no, thank you.
Okay, Lucy, do you want to talk about the nest box report?
Well, just very briefly, I've been given to understand by more experienced bluebird landlords that our results are not, too far out of line in terms of the relative success of the bluebirds and the tree swallows, the native birds. So that was encouraging. And I'm very happy that the borough is, devoting some resources to replacing some of the boxes that are in poor shape and beginning the process of remounting the boxes from the wooden posts to metal or PVC posts that are much more difficult for predators to climb. I've located 2 possible sources for inexpensive, really nice replacement nest boxes. Art Zedanquit, who made the extra sturdy boxes that are now at locations 13 and 16, he's actually going to spend the winter making kestrel and bluebird boxes, and he can make more for us at $20 a piece. He said basically that's the cost of his materials. I also contacted a longtime bluebird landlord who lives in Chester County, makes a slightly different designed box, which I like as well. And he mentioned that he would provide those for roughly $16. Now that might change with material prices, and that would require more travel to go and pick them up or somehow get hold of them. So I think we have two potential sources for inexpensive, well-designed and well-named replacement nest boxes. And Art told me that nest boxes generally last, you should expect should expect to have to replace a box once every 4 or 5 years. So, if we have 32 boxes, if we replace, 6 or 7 this year, and, kind of can expect more or less the same attrition each year, that's a pretty reasonable cost to keep them in good shape.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't heard from Dwayne or Greg, if they've actually gone out and purchased some materials to kind of test out the PVC versus the metal pole remounting options and what the cost of those materials is. So that I don't know right now.
We did discuss it a little bit, but I have not had time to
Okay,
get any material so far.
okay.
We were gonna get a little bit of material and put it together on the 2 different ways and then see what maybe kind of everybody liked better or what we thought.
See what looks better, see what works better. Okay. Alright.
There might be reasons to stagger, but I don't think budget is it, considering we're talking 16 or 28.
With the bird
25 or
boxes.
30 boxes.
Yeah, I mean,
That is
ideally,
not the reason.
the reason to stagger would be if you did 10 a year, then you're not spending all this time in the fall or any time of year with dealing with bird boxes.
Yeah.
So if we did
we're
10
not
a year,
worried about it.
yeah, 3 years, or, yeah, whatever. Do you have anything else on that, Lucy?
No, I'm very pleased, and, you know, I think we'll have a goodly number of volunteers to help with the monitoring next year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to turn this into, when we get down there and sort of start talking about some of the stuff, like an official subcommittee of people who have agreed to monitor and do things and know what they're doing, and we all sort of work on a schedule together with them and what needs to happen.
Great.
And make this, I mean, I see you have like 5 people there or so. And make this sort of more of an official subcommittee where they can, one of them, not necessarily you every time, sort of give us a quick update every other month as to what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. And make sure we're doing what we need to do and not stepping on Parkland's toes or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, does anybody have any other questions on that? No. All right. All right, we have the Parkland Forest Stewardship Study. Okay. This is what we've been waiting for months here, to sort of go over this. So, I know some of us have sort of talked here and there about what we think is important, and I think we're sort of all on the same wavelength. I know you guys all met at one point as well. I'll just start with, like, my initial takeaway is, which I know Borough isn't, or council's not gonna like, is none of this is going to do us any good unless we take care of the deer situation. I think we have, the study was 89 per square mile, if I recall.
Give or take.
Pretty good with like random.
We're right around
that was
90.
like 3 years ago.
And they recommend 5 to 10.
Right.
Yes.
They say.
And how many square miles are there? Because I was trying to convert 150 acres to square miles, and it turns out like a quarter square mile
think-
made no sense to me.
Isn't the Parklands 350 total acres?
Yeah, I always use that as a reference, and I don't know where I got that at. I can't say I ever went out and measured. I don't know if that includes like the Stonehouse property, the pool.
It does from the deeds I cobbled together,
Yeah.
totaling acreage.
But so in a square mile, there's 160 acres. Is that right?
Square miles, 5,200 and.
That's feet.
43,560 feet or something like that, but yes.
So 350 acres is only a half a mile, or half a square
I
mile.
was getting.
Thank you, Google.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I got about a quarter square mile,
Yeah.
150 acres, which made no sense to me.
Because that would only mean there's 40 deer in the park, which there's.
No, but there's just no way, it doesn't seem like Parklands is that small.
Right?
How many acres do we have? 300.
Roughly 350, but I think that includes the stone house.
But that, yeah, I mean, that would only be a half a square mile, which according to that would only mean we've got 40 deer, which I've seen more than 40 deer.
Well, the whole borough is only 5 square miles.
Yeah. But like that's
Including
like
mills?
I'm just trying to say that
Yeah.
number of
That's a
80
good
per square
question.
mile seems kind of wild if it's up the Parkland's only a half square mile, or it seems way low. Is what I'm saying, and that's and that's considered a problem. Just,
If, using Jim McCarthy, if I just outline of what we would consider parkland less recreation areas, I'm sure
We could
they
get
can
it.
calculate that a little bit,
But some of the recreation, the deer are still.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's deer living on the Stonehouse property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're in my backyard.
Who's walking through?
Yeah. So we had significantly more than we're supposed to. We're supposed to have 5 to 10. From what I've read, the max threshold really for sustainability is 20.
Yeah.
And we're looking at 89, which was years ago, with no culling of the herd, so it's probably bigger, much bigger by then.
I've
It
heard,
doesn't seem to change that. You guys are Parklands more than we are.
I have heard from residents that allegedly somewhere between 40 to 50 were taken through archery hunting last year from people that live on High Road that meet the PA Game Commission requirements to allow hunting. No idea if that number's true because we don't have access to, specific doe tags that would have been turned in and where they're coming from, and buck, you're not required to get a tag for in advance. So, I mean, that's all conjecture. I have also heard from residents in 1800 blocks of Reading Boulevard. Even some of the residents that live up on High Road, they have seen less deer in the past 6 to 8 months, but did they just move around? Are they now in Shillington or Coomeroo and they'll be back here in a few months? I don't know. I mean, short of putting GPS trackers up to follow where they're going and what they're doing,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, and this kind of, I think, gets into some of the, vegetative issues in the park, but I've heard from folks in Wyomissing Hills that they're seeing
Yep.
more deer this year than ever before, which might mean that the population is
It's
running out of
moving.
food and spreading
Elsewhere.
out into, other residential areas.
They're not running out of food.
No, they're not.
No, but the concern is, and I mean, I can't remember if it was the March walking tour just staff took or if it was on the overall walking tour we took in June. That to me is an educational component. While the discussion is had as to what is the borough going to do about this, if anything, putting up some signage in the parklands and areas of this is not what a forest should look like. This is what happens when deer are left unchecked and everything from a 6 foot height down is eaten. And I think there's good examples from state parks and other places that had to do something similar. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but at least start the educational component to the public of, did you wonder why there's no undergrowth? Did you wonder why there's no leaves from this height down? It's because of this. And maybe an easy step is you take either I would think it would be easier to do an exclosure, so exclude off an area and fence it in the parklands that deer aren't allowed, and then in 2 or 3 years, here's what it looks like when they're not allowed in, and
Yeah.
here's what happens when you don't do anything.
Yeah, and that's something we talked about in the walkthrough, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're gonna be able to deal with the deer population, I just know if we're not aware of it and somewhat focusing on it, it says, I mean, if your deer are here, they're gonna eat everything. And, I mean, from what I've read, it says, the few tree seedlings that are able to germinate don't, the forest will start turning into a park with Japanese stiltgrass spread, degrade into an impoverished savanna community with extremely low native species diversity. We're getting more invasive, less native, which means we're losing habitats for the birds, the amphibians, the insects, all of that kind of stuff. So that's just where my first concern with deer come in.
If you want me to flip to any specific page on here, just let me know.
Oh, okay.
Just on top of that,
Yeah.
we did pick up probably 31 or 32 deer that were hit on the road last year.
Oh, that's
It was turned in, so I was,
Yeah, that's a lot of deer.
mhm.
That's a lot of car accidents.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
On the other hand, how many times do you read the police blotter? And these people, they'll say they hit a deer and the police go there and there's no deer. So,
Well, they hit it and it didn't know,
Oh,
and so
maybe
it
they
ran
did
off,
it.
that's what
Okay.
happens,
could have hit
yeah.
something else and blamed the deer. The
Yeah.
insurance company.
So yeah, I mean, I think that the invasives are in part due to the deer, but I think the invasives are one of the big things we gotta deal with before we can start even trying to plant a lot of natives.
The other thing is, one of the big drivers for the deer complaints are the deer leaving the parklands and going to neighborhoods. And you're not gonna be able to prevent that. But the solution, that if you kill the deer in the park, they're not gonna leave,
That's not true.
It's not true.
Everybody's got sort of a list. Do you guys wanna go through your list first of what the plans are
So
that
Greg,
you came up with?
Jim and I met, and I believe Greg said he talked to you, Dwayne, for some input from you as well. Our concern was more budget discussions start in roughly 2 weeks, and knowing this was gonna be the only meeting of this commission before that all happens. We wanted to kind of prioritize low-hanging fruit, easily attainable, can fit it into next year's schedule, and is not gonna be a huge budget ask. So based off of that, we have 10,000 in the draft 2025 budget to cover some of the benches, a combination of trail and educational signage, dealing with invasives, and planting some wildflowers. My other thought was there are 2 grant programs that will open late March. that we could apply for that we could go after for some of the bigger ticket items like forest regeneration, some of the stormwater management recommendations that are called out in here. I am part of the Burke County Trail Partnership Committee. We had our first meeting in like 4 years last week, and one of the Army Corps employees who's responsible for management of Blue Marsh told me about a system that they use, which is called Trail Tracks. They do all of the educational signage at Blue Marsh, and when you purchase the kiosk, so to speak, it includes the kiosk, the map that goes on the kiosk, the stand that holds everything, and then brochures. And she said for what it's worth, they finished theirs about 2 years ago and she still hasn't run out of brochures, but the cost is about $4,000. I wanted to look at maybe different options, and I've not yet had time to go on their website and explore what they have, but she's also supposed to be sending information out to the group committee. There should be options out there for educational signage. The question is, I personally think that is something a lot of thought should be put into by this group as to where you want them, what you want them to say, and what you want to educate the public about. But in the meantime, we could get, like Randy just ordered yard signs for the fall walk series that have the QR codes on. They're the little ones. In the meantime, I think we could come up with a couple of different things we could put on those and strategically place them throughout the park. Just to start the conversation somewhere, like whether it's here's an area of invasives, did you know? Here's an area of natives, did you know? The area where we're talking about doing some of the stormwater improvements, did you know a water bar does X and this is why it's needed? You know, I'm just kind of pulling things out of thin air here, but again, things to start thinking about as the commission as to what would you like to educate the public on.
The borough, in my view, has neglected the Parklands for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 10,000 is an embarrassment. We should be asking for one heck, and I know it's a tough budget year, and I've heard Steve, I'm sorry, 10,000 is pathetic. Yeah. And sorry, go bigger than that.
I don't disagree. I'm also knowing we're kind of late in the year for Parks Department planning and what they can actually accomplish based off of everything else they have to do next year. I'm not opposed to going after more money, but I mean, Phil has told me.
I think, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, I think the educational component is going to be the most important.
Yeah.
Like we have, like looking at the appendix and the way that people responded to those questions, there are people that are like, exactly what you just said, things are overrun with invasives and have been neglected, and they're concerned, and then there are people that are saying, do not touch anything in that park.
Yeah,
it needs to be, and so
Yeah.
we need to demonstrate to the people that we see the problem, that also see the problem, and we need to bring those other people on board, or you guys are just gonna be getting phone calls, why are you spraying this field? And I think in terms of investing in education and communication devices, I've not priced that kind of stuff out, but I would imagine we could quickly spend more than that on kiosks and brochures and signs, and even if we just, you know.
But maybe we hire some people, we can
I
hire
came
people
across
to
these
mow,
signs, I
we
guess,
can
yeah.
hire people to pull invasives. I mean,
Yeah.
So I came across this sign along with the other day. I went to a meadow class there on how to
Nice.
establish and maintain a meadow.
Yeah.
And they had these metal signs that you could move around, and they literally, you write on it with like a paint marker and can remove it. And they had it in front of a really enormous native thistle. And it looked like the most wretched weed out there in the midst of this meadow, but they were like, no, this is native, this is why it's here, these are the pollinators and the species that it's supporting, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can find something along these lines of different sizes, we can reuse them and change them. And if you guys go and spray a whole field or rip up a whole field of porcelainberry, we have a sign like that says, this is what's happening here. You know, invasives being removed, or if we have an invasive spot with a bunch, you know, be like, yes, this might look pretty, but this is not supporting, you know what I mean? To be able to use these signs and reuse them. and
So
change them around.
they just chalk wrote that on those.
It's not, it's like with, kind of like a paint marker.
I know what
Okay.
you mean.
So yeah, it's not gonna
Like
wash off with the rain, but it can be scraped off and
Reused, okay.
reused.
But why can't the budget include one more summer staff person to address invasives?
Part-time?
Yeah,
I'm
Well,
not-
once they're on, then they're not going away.
that's not,
It's okay.
they're hired in the summer, that's it.
So we can hire them seasonally?
That's all
We
we've
do,
got a
you
bunch.
normally have two,
About 3 or
three?
4?
Yeah, there was
Hard
4
summer.
this past.
You had
summer.
4 seasonal summer.
Do whatever you, see,
Right.
add one.
But would there be enough non-spraying physical work for invasive species control where, or how much supervision would somebody need to say, we wanna,
If you don't have your license.
Yeah.
yeah, like,
You pay more for some of those places, I mean.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
Remember that the consultants recommended at a minimum that the borough, I assume, would find an outside contractor to develop 3 different plans: a forest management plan, integrated vegetation management plan, and stream bank stabilization plan. These are budget items, as I would imagine. We need outside expertise to get these plans in place. And that would guide, for instance, what you're talking about at the moment, how what is worth doing regarding invasive plants.
That's also one of
We
the
need
things,
expert guidance, huh?
we could go after grant funding for that specifically as well. Funding to hire a consultant to prepare the plan, and there's less competition for that type of funding versus I have the plan, I know what I do, I need the money to do it. I mean, we could
Okay.
go after both, and I don't see why we wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the interim, we need to come up with like a 6-month plan, like we're talking about now. We need to know what we're gonna do this fall, next
Right.
spring, and then we also have to come up with like a 3 to 5 year plan,
Yeah.
where we're gonna take the parklands in general.
and something, what Michelle said was all true, that what we thought that starting unit would be, but something that just came to mind that to experiment with, is if we picked a 100-foot section of stream bank that was all,
Plenty of stuff.
honeysuckle, to mechanically remove that and replant something native, just in a small area, and go back 3 years from now and say, what does it look like? And that would be, something like that would be doable,
And educational.
yeah.
Yeah, now I remember with the study when we walked around, he said we can't necessarily just rip them out. We have to cut some of them down intermittently and plant something there,
You don't wanna
leave the root
strip.
system there to hold the soil until the next plant's established,
Yeah,
then
that
you've
makes
gotta rip
sense.
out the.
And look, I mean,
Right,
unless
yeah.
you're like gonna do a full engineered plan where you're cutting it back and
Yeah.
cutting,
I'd say you start with a small, like I said, literally like a 100-foot section, and
Yeah,
But to
every
do
third-
anything like that, we need deer exclusion fence, or it's just gonna get
Eaten.
mowed down.
that's a tricky thing in that, just like the split rail fence, it's gonna go bye-bye.
Well, but that's where the issue that Jen brought up of like, the deer
Yeah.
are gonna, if we put a bunch of live stakes in a stream bank of native, willows and, red twig dogwoods or something, like, they're gonna get stripped down and they're never gonna,
True.
really have a chance. We could put, you can attach like yeah, but then you're working in the floodplain with a fence that's gonna trap debris and have to get clean, it's just tricky, it really,
We found the tubes work the best,
yeah.
till they get established. But even so, when you get a flood, it's the same as a fence, but at least it's something.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the tubes. Yeah, that, we could try with some live stakes and tubes and,
That could be an Earth Day
Put money-
event.
Yeah, put money in the budget for that.
Yeah,
So, I think the only motion that's under this topic is,
it just says approving.
Finance committee consider including funding. So I mean, you can set a dollar amount, like
Right.
staff-wise, we said 10,000. If the commission wants it to be more, you tell us what you want that number to be.
Now, that 10,000 is just gonna go towards labor and.
No, that would be
benches,
like actual
staff.
purchase of the wildflowers, you know, whatever
Oh, if
equipment.
we use a lot of Roundup, then Roundup isn't cheap, if we're gonna control invasives, that would come out of that, you know, it's,
Please,
this
40.
is whatever side those boards that you were showing.
Would you put at least 40, please?
Yeah, I mean, 40.
Make it a nice round 50.
Okay, yeah, let's ask for 50. What if they're gonna say no?
Well, then,
You know, that's the worst, they're not gonna
Start
say.
high.
Start high.
yeah, but 10 is just,
No, 10 is not enough.
that don't do nothing.
That's not enough. 50,000 would go towards, let's say, bringing someone on board for long-term planning if we don't get grant money, developing this 3 to 5 year plan, planting some natives in, lots of Roundup for the invasives, and maintenance of the invasives.
And the experiment.
And the
And-
experiments of,
And starting
And
with some
science.
educational signage.
and educational signage, which is gonna be big. It's gotta be big.
Can I say something?
Yeah?
You know, in the discussion of options for deer management in the plan, it does say that the, probably the most effective is using qualified professional sharpshooters to euthanize a high quantity of deer within a property. Now, I'm assuming that's pretty expensive.
Yep.
But if we want to
They
get
turned it down.
value for money, we need to at least consider what's considered, you know, what's put forward as being, you know, the most effective. And perhaps we should investigate what that option would cost
20 to
if we
25,000.
want to,
I thought it was a
Yeah,
1,000 per
handle.
deer.
huh?
The quote,
We did, Lucy, we did take that to, well, I wasn't on the council at that point, but that was taken to council, sharpshooters, that whole conversation a couple years ago
Yeah.
when we did the study. And it was turned down. I mean, doing sharpshooters, one, is extremely expensive, and secondly, can be really difficult with an open parkland like that and trying to figure out, you know, I mean, it would be easier to bring in, archers versus rifles because they have a much smaller breadth of space that they need to safely shoot.
Right.
Council's never gonna approve bringing in sharpshooters.
Well, good luck keeping the people out of the park.
Right, you know,
I mean,
yeah, there's
your
just, it's not gonna,
your
yeah,
collateral
somebody's,
damage is
it's
just-
too much of a risk.
Well, do we need to consider some ask in next year's budget for deer control? And if so, what would we be recommending?
Well, first we'd have to ask for the deer control. They're not gonna approve it.
I mean, if you were gonna go eventually, say you, let's be optimistic and say you got the approval to do some type of archery hunt, I mean, that's really in-house with permitting system, assistance of PD. I don't think there's an extensive cost to it, but again, it's
Right.
the optics and the safety factor of,
It's the political will.
and, I mean, even with archery, there still is a potential for something happening.
Yeah.
Right.
And of all our problems, is deer really the top priority? If
No, I just think-
if you had 50,000 to spend, would you blow half of it on deer?
No, but like we said, if you put natives in, the deer are just gonna come by and eat them. So we have to find ways
Right,
to.
but you're not gonna kill enough deer to prevent that from happening. You
Not
have to do other
necessarily,
things to
no.
prevent it from happening.
Right. So yeah, then you've gotta spend money on the tubes and the fencing. You know, the other discussion was fencing off a space to let it go, which would be expensive, and maybe we figure out what that costs to put a 12-foot fence around an acre and let that go for a couple years and just see what naturally happens within the confines of that acre with some
Well, it's
signage
gonna
around
get
it.
overrun with porcelain berry.
Well,
You know,
yeah, I mean,
we
you gotta-
need
yeah,
some
that's the
active.
thing.
So is that what you want?
Yeah, we
So you
need
need
somebody
some
active, but that would be
activists.
that,
Yeah, we could do.
potentially that position,
To keep the
you know,
deer
somebody
out.
who's gonna be
You gotta keep the people out
pulling,
too.
you know,
go up
going
there-
there.
Yeah,
You
I
wanna go up there and
understand.
see who's living up there.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a 12-foot fence with a gate that's locked, that we can go in and maintain, I guess, the invasives, and I don't know, I think it's the easiest way to teach people.
I can ask Larry Lloyd at Parks Nature might have a cost idea on that, cause I know they do deer exclosures at some of the areas they manage.
Yeah. I mean, I think they said minimum 8 foot, but a 12-foot's ideal.
Yeah, they can jump an 8-foot fence if they really want to.
Yeah.
They would hop in with the high schools would.
Yeah.
They'd hop over the fence.
The other thing I know we wanted to talk about was the mowing schedules for the meadows. And I don't know, I mean, I took a class on it, but just on Saturday. I know more people have more information too, but like I don't know what you guys are doing your schedule-wise for mowing, but are you mowing down the meadows at all, like fully to the ground? Or are you just mowing paths?
Well, in the meadows, we were mowing those in March, usually middle of March, just
Okay.
towards the end, somewhere around there. And for the most part, yeah, we were mowing the whole meadow. Like
Right.
if you go up behind the barn, that's in 3 different years' growth increments. So the one section that's out there now has probably 4 to 5 years on it, so this March that'll get cut and I'll put the rotation back into a 3-year. If we keep up with it, it'll have 3 different stages of growth.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what the report says
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Yeah, and not to mow in the fall because animals need that cover in the winter.
To live there, yeah.
And it's less wear on the tools,
Right.
the lights.
But it's early enough in the spring, so the red-winged blackbirds can nest in the fields.
Yeah.
Right.
And the
But you're doing those every year? You're just doing the 3-year rotation behind the barn?
Well, it's a 3-year rotation, yes, and the meadows weren't every year because sometimes, depending on the weather, we can't get in to mow. So if it's too wet to get in to do the meadows, then sometimes they'll get skipped. But if we can, I've been trying to every year to try to get some of the basic stuff and the woody stuff kind of down and back to get it where it needs.
So if we did that, and you can correct me, if we switched it from every year to every other year, we could get some sort of biennials that grow in quickly and will give us some blooms. It'll give us some flowering and help. They grow quick enough that they'll help sort of maybe push
Yeah,
out
like
some
across
of
from the Goodman
diseases.
barn, a lot, sometimes you split that in half. They just mowed half of it, that kind of alternated that back and forth
Yeah.
as well. But since that porcelain vine took over and got so I've been trying to keep everything down. Like there's been a lot less of that down there since we were regularly mowing it. Been trying to look at it and monitor it a bit. It is a lot less, but there is some over in the park that we didn't mow at all. That stuff is just like relentless. It's
Jen, I think it might be worth it for you to go out with Dwayne for an hour
Yeah.
so you can look at things in the field because he has a plan going.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
No,
lie, I
it's
don't
not
know all these
No.
bar names and
Right.
field location and that sort of thing.
Right.
I'm not really,
You know, it alternates too, like
Yeah.
I said, because of the weather, depending on what's going on, then if there's something that's worse somewhere else, like. it's-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think that's being, held at bay, or is it still increasing?
The
It's, the porcelain vine, it's still there, but it's a lot less than what it was when we get started, that's for
So
sure.
the mowing has actually pulled it off?
Oh, yeah, it receded a good
Yeah.
bit, not with that, but I was actually going down there just with a backpack and just once they mow it, and then it comes back and comes up to new, just hitting the little individual, like the places where the bigger weed was, that's where it wants to stay to come back, to try to hit that, I only did that like a couple hours really, because it was just, I didn't really have much time,
Are you using Roundup then?
but it, yes,
Yeah.
but it is.
Excellent, which
It
is
is.
exactly what's recommended for person there. Now, express hopefully the environment, not, whether or not it has to be social.
And you said that was what's recommended for it, or?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had talked to Bartlett Tree,
Mhm.
and the recommended now is 5 foot.
car line, that is usually what it looks
I always think of Garland as after you cut it like a honeysuckle, you paint the stump with that.
Yeah, you can
I
do
didn't know,
a,
was it, you can also spray that on
you can,
leaves.
I think the label says like if it's under 2-inch diameter trunk, you can just do a basil spray. But yeah, if it's, you know, it is for cut stumps if you're doing bigger stuff too, but. might be an issue.
Do we have like the timing down on when we should be really working on the invasives before they flower, yada, yada, yada?
Well, yeah, the forest vine, you wanna, well, probably should have had it all, cause it's already into berry.
Yeah.
You know, they're not fully mature yet, but they're not far from.
Okay.
May I say something?
Yeah.
In terms of mowing as management for the Japanese knotweed, mowing, what you're hoping to do is eventually exhaust the enormous root system and not let it go to flower and seed. And that can take, I guess, a decade, and you can exhaust the roots more quickly if you let the knotweed grow to the point where, you know, it's about to put out flowers, or maybe it's flowering but hasn't seeded, you know, and then then you cut it back. So you gotta let it grow because that's taking the energy out of the roots, then you cut it back. So, you know, clearly every invasive is different. The stilt grass, which is invading a number of our meadows very badly, as I understand, that goes to seed in late August and September, and if you can mow that before it goes to seed in the fall, you'll have a lot less of it in future years. So, you know, it depends on the plant.
Yeah. Yeah, and there, you know, I think that's, you know, some of, like, there's a lot of nuance to managing these things. You know, that document that they put in there at the end is, you know, I think gets into some of that, but I think the integrated vegetative management plan that they were talking about, I think is something that would help, you know.
What Larry said, you're controlling it.
Yeah.
You're never gonna eliminate it.
Right, no,
Oh,
we're not
yeah.
gonna get rid of it.
Yeah, I think the other thing it says in there about the mowing is just like, if you are gonna do a whole field, leave it like in that 16 to 20 inch range, versus if you split and do half and half, you could mow it lower, so you're still leaving habitat for like stem nesting insects and that sort of thing. I think they added that in there. I may have mentioned it in the comments, but yeah, just, you know, that's the only, you know, as a, you know, if you want to get a whole field like knocked down to deal with the woodies and the trees, you know, if you do a section of that, even, you know, 30%, I think, is what I've recommended to folks, but I think he says something like that in there, that if you leave that a little bit higher, you're giving habitat for insect populations and things that nest in the goldenrod stems and like that sort of stuff.
So the report said trails shouldn't be any wider than 10 feet, and I'm not quite sure what they mean by trail, but you all widened it from the barn up the hill to the bench. It is so much nicer wider. People can walk 2, 3, 4 abreast, and there's still room for bicyclists down the
Yeah,
side.
I didn't get that or understand where
The
that was
reason
coming
for
from.
the most part why we widened that was because of the trees going up there. There was, when it was so narrow, it was just so hard for them to mow around. It was so difficult for us to try to mow around the field. Plus, when we go up and down there with the trucks and the equipment, that way the people can get safe enough away from. That's why that got wider.
Yeah, I think the wider
Yeah,
trails makes a lot of
it was
sense. I didn't
wonderful.
really
Yeah.
understand why he said 10 feet.
It's
like,
really worked well. It's
Yeah.
worked well for the people who walk in the park. So
Yeah, I think
thank you
it's-
for doing that.
yeah, I think it's
And I
nice.
would not want you to go back to 10 feet. That's,
No, I
Yeah.
don't think that's necessary.
And then when you're walking from the bench back toward the woods, back toward the high school, that's a lot wider than 10 feet. And that enables different groups of people to come in different directions, and that's a high traffic area. I would not want that closed in.
Alright, so we'll ask for 50K and try and come up with a plan for signage, for education, to move around the parklands with whatever's being worked on, work on the invasives.
I'll copy you, but I'll talk
Wildflowers. So we're still gonna try and get this wildflower thing up. Are we trying to do that this fall?
No.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was no, I don't,
What-
like, that,
what's that-
like,
I don't-
came out of left field.
That laid down area
Last-
where
We
we're
need
talking
pictures
about,
from
it's
your
not gonna be
backyard.
vacated until next year.
I'm serious. She talked about how lovely it looked.
Yeah, it's,
Who has remote?
You're talking about where
put
all
out,
the
you
equipment
could
is
put out an
right now.
RFP, I'll put something.
Well, that, yeah, once that equipment's gone, the porcelain berry's gonna come back, and before
Yeah.
we even try and put anything there, we should try and eradicate from that location.
Yeah. We should almost, I don't know what's right and wrong here, but when they vacate that area, because it's so disturbed, we should probably do nothing for a year except spray it and try to kill whatever's weeds and porcelain berry and poison hemlock are in there, and then do something in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to say, the last, like, you know, it's
Yeah.
not something you could just pull together in 2 weeks and, you know,
Just trying to.
anyone will be happy with the result.
Just trying to get some pretty flowers out there for some of them. Yeah.
What the fake flowers that we could use in the white area, we can alternate between Wyomissing Boulevard and alternate between that.
Oh, on that way to Cannon Street?
Yeah, and the
Sunday,
Parklands, yeah.
and the Parklands, okay, that works, that works. That's in budget.
Ronnie down.
Alright, does anybody have anything else at this point? I think, go ahead.
Just one other
No,
quick good thing.
yeah, no.
We got a $4,000 grant from Giant or something to plant native trees. Most of them are gonna be street trees, but we were planning on putting a handful per the report on the, that would be the south side of the creek from Bruce Bridge heading downstream, just for stream bank stabilization. I gotta talk to you about, if you already did your order, if we could add on.
Whatever you gave me today.
So it would be that, across the water from the gristmill?
Yeah, from Bruce Bridge heading downstream on the old Wyomissing roadside, and it's not gonna be allowed in 5
Yeah,
and
that
10.
was like the section that we were walking, Larry was like,
Right.
we could get some trees in here, okay,
So we're just gonna do that, because we got this grant.
Dead of the fence.
We're gonna wrap them, protect them?
We probably should, yes.
We put tree guards on.
Yeah, okay.
I have a lot of tree guards. We do that, especially out west of Clayton, well, Reading Boulevard out there. They get buck rub out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a start. We'll try and get money, see what we get financially, and then figure out where to go and
Plan
you know,
accordingly.
in the new year, start thinking through a more long-term plan. How to bring it back.
I have one comment. When I, was going through the report, one thing struck me that, would be good to discuss with, Dwayne or Greg and that crew, the recommendation that the network of trails should be studied to eliminate redundant and underused trails within natural habitats, and that visitors need better signage and markings to understand the trail system. I think both of those are really good suggestions.
Yeah, on the surface, yeah, but I wasn't sure what he meant by the redundancy between Ruth's Bridge and the barn. I mean, I would hope they're not trying to push everybody onto the road. Because next to the road, there is that path against the creek. I would hate to lose that.
Yeah.
And, dogs like to go in the water and cool off, get a drink, things like that. I mean, and you're not gonna eliminate the road, so what do they wanna get rid of?
Well,
On the other side of the creek?
Well, I think on both sides, like, I remember him talking about, path material there and changing that into something more like a boardwalk so that the millings or, ground asphalt or whatever isn't washing out into the creek in that area.
And that's fine, but that was an example of redundancy, and I didn't understand what the problem was.
Yeah, there was some other trails he wanted to get rid of
That was
the
by the
gravel and
parks.
turn into turn into grass trails.
That was closer to the Parks barn.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
area
it's
that
turning
flooded.
back into, yeah, because the floodlands turning back into just grass trails. You get all that gravel out of there, so the sediment doesn't build up.
Yeah, but again, that's not redundancy, I'm not sure,
No,
I'm not
it's
sure what the
not,
redundancy
The
problem was.
one that I remembered him pointing out was like when you come across, I think it's Ruth's Bridge, like that hard turn to your left versus that hill turn that, where you can go straight and then hang a left. I think that was one of the things that they pointed out, but again, I think
Going in which direction?
like when you're going towards the boulevard, or, the Museum Road, across Ruth's Bridge, there's like a hard left where all those trout lily are kind of on the embankment, and then you can go up and to the left, and it's like a grass trail, and I think he was like saying that, we could have a deeper riparian buffer there if we got rid of that trail that was right to the left, and people could still go down along the stream, but I don't know, I mean, that's one of, I think one of those.
There doesn't, to me, there doesn't seem to be much redundancy.
No, yeah, I'm kind of with you there. But, I mean, this is kind of maybe a thing for more, it kind of gets into the mowing schedule and that sort of thing, but the, maybe this is a conversation for, future meeting, but the, I brought this up before one time, but the swale on, Logan, like that big bioswale.
That's actually a dam.
Yeah, well, like, yeah, the dam and but, I would love if, when we're talking about interpretive signing and that sort of stuff, if that could be an area that gets that, because I know you guys said that you guys get complaints because it's,
How it looks.
a mix of milkweed and cattails and grasses and stuff, but like that's, they talk about that in a report, there's, having good vegetated riparian buffers, because that all feeds into the creek. When it gets mowed, there's thatch that then goes down into the creek in the park, and like, I know it's not like directly in the parklands,
But it ties
but
in.
I think that
Yeah.
like if we could get some good permanent signage there that would say like, hey, this is,
Why we only mow it once a year?
yeah,
It's deliberate, not accidental.
yeah. But like, cause that, it says in the report that the riparian area should get the same mowing as the meadows once a year in the early spring. And I know that ended up getting mowed in June or whenever, sometime this summer.
In there towards the end of July.
Yeah. And so like, that's something that this report is saying we shouldn't do with the riparian zones, but I get that people, there's people in the borough that I'm sure don't like seeing, grasses and wildflowers and things that, yeah, but like, but I think that a little educational signage
Yeah.
there could help,
Long way.
birders go into that, every time I see somebody there with binoculars, I'm like, email the borough and tell them that you do this, please, because other people complain about it, and I don't imagine you guys got any emails from this yet.
I was just gonna look at Jim and say, did you get any emails? I
No,
didn't get any emails.
I tell people, and they're like, oh, really, they wanna know that, I'm like, just let them know that you,
Trust me.
but yeah, so I mean, just like in terms of signage, like, it's not in the parklands, but like,
Yeah.
the water that moves through there affects the creek, and
Yes.
the speed of that water is contributing to the erosion in the creek that goes through the parkland, so, yeah, something, it's gonna be a battle, I'm sure, if that doesn't get moved.
And talk about educational, refuse and recycling is sort of sponsoring a composting talk at the library, and perhaps this committee, when plans are firmed up, could have a talk at the library about what we're doing and why.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Yeah. To give an overview of what's,
And solicit feedback.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, if we were to get like a bunch of signage, some permanent, some movable, et cetera, do we have any general idea of what that would cost?
No, but I don't think it would be, when you say permanent, are you talking kiosks?
I think, well, not
But
big
yeah,
kiosks
I mean, like
necessarily,
what's
but
at the
maybe it's
museum
just,
where they have
yeah,
those
like a
kind
placard
of
that
that
says,
like at the base of
children's
each tree.
storybook.
yeah, what is it?
I was
okay,
thinking more of the
what
ones at
is-
the base of the trees that they explain, like, this is I cannot think of the
You
Latin
will,
genus
you will
and species
all
for anything.
remember,
but-
because we've taken it down now, but at Moose Bridge, between Moose Bridge and the Spring House on that trail, we had a 6x6 post with a wooden board on it that showed the old bridge there prior to the concrete Moose Bridge.
That's still there, we put it down.
Oh, you did?
Next to the trash can?
But it's like, you know,
But
something
they don't-
kind of on an angle.
They don't
like
last, yeah,
that.
it was big on
yeah.
angle, but it doesn't last forever. It
Yeah,
lasts
yeah.
10
Yeah,
years.
but yeah, permanent
Yeah.
is relative, but
But something like that at Logan Avenue,
yeah.
How many are you thinking?
I don't know, I just feel like, yeah, this angled platform, I mean, I guess it could be wood, it could be steel with a cover over it that you can change out the information, or you're just putting a metal plate on it with, you know, this is what is happening here, this is a dam, this is, you know, the swale, blah, blah.
We actually have a couple of those now, there's one there at the bridge, there's one at the bench at the Spring House we put in with the plaque on it.
no, we're on.
And there's one up top by the bench up there, Edelman's bench and the climber bench, both have the thing. The plaque is not on the climber bench yet.
Right.
We're trying, a tough time trying to figure out how to fasten it to it, cause it's
Yeah.
different than the other one.
Yeah.
We could look and see if there's anything on the coasters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how much were those I mean, not that we need a kiosk, but if we were to put another kiosk or two, like that like Trex one.
2 or 3.
I wanna say we got 2 for like 2,000, 2,500.
I don't think I was involved.
I don't even know that they were that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So I mean, that may help give some sense of like, if, you know, we put an extra kiosk that has some information. Probably those, you know, little angled things are gonna be a little bit less than a kiosk, depending on how we're able to make them.
They are, but we try to, the one there at the bridge is doing stuff about, so it is a lot of professional care because there's no way to really kind of seal it up.
Yeah.
So then we did seal it up to keep the weather out, but then the condensation works against you too, so.
Yeah.
You would almost need to.
It's okay to put a plaque or do something, but if you wanna try to put something in with reading it too.
The kiosk is more flexible.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
kiosk is better for interchangeable stuff, but if we're doing something permanent, trying to describe something from a permanent standpoint, I mean,
Yeah,
that
I
could
mean,
be
I think just
on
like,
a metal,
yeah, I think
plaque.
visually too, like when you have that angled thing and you walk up to it and you're reading it and you're looking out at the thing that you're reading about, you know, I think like that's you know, a design thing, but that's experientially different than like you walk up and you look at the kiosk and then you turn and you keep on going. And so I think having some things like that, like whether it's in the meadow or, you know, at one of the floodplains or like something like that where, you know, I don't know, they would, you know, I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways that, you know,
We can at
That
least
could
look
get
at some
taken.
we'll
cost
look at,
options.
yeah, let's ask for 50, are you guys good, let's ask for 50, we'll
Yeah.
approve. Alright, I'm gonna make a motion, to approve recommending the finance committee, council consider including $50,000 in the 2025 budget funding. To cover the recommendations from the Parklands study.
Well, it's not gonna cover, to begin to.
Yeah, to
Yes, to cover
face ball.
minimal costs, some costs.
Initial.
Yeah, initial
Initial cost.
costs, there, that's the word I'm looking for, cover initial costs. Do I have a
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Alright, we'll ask for 50, we'll look at some more numbers and see what we can get. Alright, sounds good. Does anybody have anything else on the Parkland study?
I do. We
Yeah.
haven't discussed the recommendation for a, Friends of the Parkland organization, or how we might try to start working towards that.
So, Friends of the Parkland is like a big thing that it's basically a separate nonprofit. Is this something we can get involved in as a borough, or is this something that that's what I'm not sure of.
I think that might almost be a legal question.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, Lucy, I think I said in the email, I think this might be a legal question for Chris, to see if we can even be involved in helping create that. Now, it's not to say that you can't go find a committee and
Do it on
create it,
your own.
but as council members, as a commission, I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to be involved in the creation of a separate nonprofit.
I don't think so.
Right.
It just doesn't, just
So-
doesn't feel right.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think once we start getting education out and start getting requests out for possible volunteers, et cetera, you know, that's something that can be looked into, but I'm not sure as a commission we can actually partake in that. Which is why I wanna take that to Chris, our solicitor, and see what he says.
Yeah, okay,
Okay?
But whatever,
Yeah.
that entity has to be closely coordinated with the borough, because they just can't think that they have the right.
Right, they're
Do
just
whatever they
raising
want, and
funds
that's-
to help support the Parklands that will then be,
We'll then come back to this commission
yeah,
Those
we'll know,
people, and we
know
make-
you guys to,
Yeah, the
Yes.
council ultimately have to approve
Right.
everything,
and, yeah.
but they need to understand that,
right.
which will not be.
Okay, anything else on the Parklands?
I just wanted to mention, that I looked over, you all looked over the questionnaire results and what everybody thought about the park and the things that they'd love to see here. We've covered most of them, especially was the educational, ecological education, which, we've addressed. But they also want trash and recycling receptacles, more of those if possible. They wanted a water source. Is there any place we can place
We just,
access to
Well, we
water?
do have
We-
one, yeah.
there's one at the barn, and then we just put a new one in on Old Mill Road because thanks to a private donor. And I mean, for what it's worth, that was close to $10,000.
Be nice if we could put a sign there where they can find water. Maybe perhaps.
I don't think most people that use the park know now,
Well,
get water at the park barn and get water here, it's not,
But we'll need
Doesn't
maps and
anybody
we can put it on
carry-
the map, I
Yeah,
think.
Yeah.
that was one of
Part
the
of that
things that
map.
we could do, a trail map for one thing, maybe, could we print one? of
Your first question or comment about trash and recycling receptacles, my concern there is one, staff to empty them, and two, we already have issues. I've personally witnessed people pull up at one of our Parkland parking lots and clean out their entire car.
Okay.
So my concern is the more space we give them to do that, the more it's gonna get abused.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we could do some leave no trace signage and say, if
Yeah.
you bring trash in the park,
And for
just
what-
take it home.
For what it's worth, that was a big takeaway from the county trails meeting I was at last week. Every park is seeing more issues, and part of it, one of the things our goal is for our next meeting to work on is consistent language that we can put out everywhere about leave no trace behind, or this is the impact that you have when you leave your litter. So,
Yep.
it's not just us.
I do question the utility of having the recycling part, because it doesn't take much to foul that. And
Yeah.
once somebody's put trash in recycling, it has to be all treated as trash.
Yeah.
So, as much as I am a proponent of recycling, it's abused to the point where.
It's all contaminated.
It's contaminated, we need more room for trash, so
One way to possibly, keep people from cleaning out their cars is to take the trash cans that are right there at the parking lot and move them like
On the inside.
30 feet into the
We
park.
did that, that's why most
Okay.
all of them are moved, the only ones that are not moved that are by the parking lot's the one at Old Mill.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that
The
one's
reason for
really
those
big,
being there, because as soon as it floods and there's a little bit, they're gone,
so that makes
so
sense, okay.
rather than, like, so if I do know on Woodwatch or whatever, I would try to come in, somebody try to come in at the middle of the night or whatever, then try to move them up. So we've been putting them there, because we were at the point where we were moving them an awful lot.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make sense.
So-
Yeah, I saw the one at Old Mill and was like, if they get moved in a little bit, but that,
But I do,
We put another
I
one
appreciate
there.
having two there now.
yeah.
Yes, that was, we took the one from below the Hewitt house where it was doubled up,
Mm-hmm.
and we put the other down there at the parking lot, cause that seemed to be getting more, which it is the parking lot, it is gonna get more. But like the one at the Highlands, that's probably it's 100 yards,
Yeah,
and the ones like that were at the parking lot down by the bridge at the Stonehouse, or on the inside, not the outside.
I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but I've noticed that a couple Wawas recently, they used to have those big red garbage cans out front. Now, some places they don't have them anymore, because I think people were emptying their cars at the Wawa.
Okay. Anything else on the Parklands?
I mean, real quick,
Yeah.
a whole bunch of people mentioned having a little dog park in their questionnaire.
Let's just talk about
Something
this.
to think about in that 3 to 5 year plan.
I like it.
Question, the report was clear that we're supposed to use that for passive recreation.
Yes.
So when the high school has cross-country meets, when the police chief has 5Ks, 10Ks going through there, is that a violation of the deed restriction?
I think that's passive, yeah.
That's passive.
That's running
Yeah,
is
walking,
passive?
hiking, running.
Really?
Yeah. There's no
Then what's
equipment.
active?
What's that?
Then what's active? If
It
running,
means
if running's not
it-
active, what's active?
To me, active versus, what they mean by passive is like, so there's no specific sport fields out there. We don't have like a snack bar. We don't have, and I had asked Chris to look into that, because even putting the sports court out there, how we move forward with it, would not have been non-passive recreation. To me, it's organized league,
Stationary.
yes.
Yeah.
I think just in general, the area being used for recreation, like the cross-country team, whether they're using it for an event or just to practice, it's not taking away from the fact of we don't have, a track with lighting and an announcer stand. That's
I think
what they
it's
were.
great that we use that way, I'm just.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the true definition is, but it is more stationary, more equipment, more
Okay.
sort of like that would be active.
The stationary stuff is active.
Yeah. Exactly. I love government. Okay, anything else on the Parklands? Alright, the Eagle Scout project, I don't discuss any updates. I mean, Ron's not here to give us any updates.
I'm not aware of any further contact.
Yeah, I
Staff
mean,
and-
Ron is the one who knows the Eagle Scout and who's gonna do this, so we will just, unless anybody has anything, we'll just wait till Ron shows up at a meeting.
Are we done with that little fence?
They plant
yeah.
trees there, yes.
Speaking of
Yeah.
Ron's projects,
Yeah, well, it's not on the, so we're good for now. Alright. I don't know if you guys wanna sit around for this. The only other thing we have to do is find more members for the committee.
Yeah, I don't
So
need to
if
do
you
that.
guys wanna leave,
Thank
go
you.
enjoy the rain, please do. Thank you for sitting here as long as you have. I appreciate your input. Thank you. You guys are doing an awesome job.
Greg, I'm gonna forward you an email.
Okay,
That- I'm gonna forward you an email that is a voicemail that came into me that should be for the tree department. I have no idea how I got it, but I'll send it to you if you don't mind.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
fine.
Logan and Lincoln are somewhere near there. They want branches cut back. So, thank
Sounds
you.
good, I get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Alright. We have 6 people. And 2 seats. And 2 alternate seats that we can also fill. So, what do you got? Does anybody have any input? Has anybody read through these? I mean, I can quick go over them. Margaret is probably Margaret and David, thank you.
can you show them?
I don't.
You don't have.
Yeah, you don't have them at all, actually. I did not,
Okay.
I forgot to send them to you guys. Yeah, so Margaret and David have the least, Margaret Cosby and David Toon have the least amount of knowledge. David, did you read through them? I mean, his was,
Yeah.
he was on the road. Margaret's a birder. They all are absolutely interested and they've all expressed sincere interest. But I would say Margaret and Toon are at the bottom in terms of experience, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be considered. Quindy also does not really have experience in, park and shade tree stuff.
It's pronounced Kindy, like with
Oh,
a K.
Kindy,
Yeah.
thank you.
I think he'd get bored in 2 minutes here.
You think so? You know him?
No, I don't know him,
Oh.
but if you look at his background,
He's got an impressive
he's
background.
incredible.
Yeah.
He's actually, he and his wife Heather are clients of mine.
Okay.
So I'm a little biased, but he's definitely really like he didn't know I was on the commission, and like
Yes.
I had I was presenting a design to them, and we got to chatting, and he was like, I saw this thing in the library, I was thinking about it. You
He
know?
did then disclose later after he sent the letter that
Oh, he-
that I know somebody. If that's a problem, it's okay.
Yeah, I
I
know.
won't have to ask for a seat.
But yeah, I mean, I actually did not know his background at all. So I like,
He's got an
Just-
impressive background.
yeah, I mean, just from like our conversations, I think it's this kind of stuff that's in the land stewardship program is something that he's pretty engaged with
Mm-hmm.
learning about. And is interested in seeing kind of that approach.
Okay.
That approach taken.
I think he probably would be excellent on borough council.
Yeah.
Oh, can you on borough council?
I think he'd be excellent there. I mean, I'm just from
Next
looking
year,
at his
right.
resume.
Yeah.
This could be the gateway.
Could I make a
Yes.
few comments?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, the only person on the list, that I know personally at all is Margaret Cosby.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a very engaging, positive, high-energy personality. I think she would be delightful to work with. I think she would be reliable and, pull her weight. Everything I would have to say about Margaret is positive. Amy DeShazo, her letter struck me as very articulate, enthusiastic, and, she is just about to complete the Master Gardener course. She would be a link with the Master Gardeners, but, so I was impressed with her letter. Kindy, his background, he must, have a well-honed analytic capability, and his background in management and, organizing and getting things done is attractive. He is a relatively new resident in the community. Not that could necessarily count against him, but that's one thing that I would take into account. And
Sometimes I find they're more motivated.
Or they
What
see things
about
from a different
Angel
perspective.
Helm?
Angel Howe never. I don't have contact information, and
Okay.
Wait a minute, you shouldn't be chasing her.
no, exactly. I don't have contact
Sorry.
information. She was brought to my attention by Bill. I reached back out to him and said, I don't have any information. We have posted this. She hasn't reached out. He said, I don't know any contact information, so
Sorry.
that's where we're at.
She excluded herself.
Yeah.
Went
Yeah.
offline.
What struck me is that if, just looking at her background, that if she does have a desire to get involved in helping with management of the parkland, she might be interested in helping and have the right experience and knowledge to get a friends group started.
She might be better off with a
Just-
friends group.
Yeah, she would be probably great to get a friends group started.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Amy, not only has gone through the Master Gardener program, but she was participating in Earth Day with the Master Gardeners, was, meeting the public and educating them, and that is the kind
Yeah.
of kind of engagement that we need.
Yes.
So I think
Right.
Amy,
I know Amy.
Amy and Kidney are.
I know Amy personally. She has taken over my seat as the president of Reading Theater Project. She has a lot of ideas. Sometimes showing up and follow through is a concern with her. She's a great human. I'd love to have her here, but I do worry about her commitment, and possibly putting her in as an alternate might be better than a voting seat for the immediate future. She has a lot of ideas. She's a go-getter, but then follow through sometimes isn't always high on the
She's
table.
too busy.
Yeah, I think sometimes she gets herself too busy. Yeah, and she just took over as the president of RTP, so she's got a lot of, and that board has some members. She's got a lot of work over there too. So the other two we didn't talk about are also Brandon Mathis, and Richard Patrick. Richard Patrick has the BS in forestry and turfgrass management. Brandon does not have educational experience, but he is again passionate.
Sounds good.
Brandon is a neighbor of mine. He lives down the hill by Fountain Park. He heard about us through Marianne Reardon and sent me this. He's motivated. He would do stuff, I think. But again, doesn't have the experience. Margaret's motivated. I don't know anything about Richard. I think he's the only one that nobody knows on here.
His resume, or his comments sounded very, very interesting.
Yes.
And I love that he has a forestry management, and he is a landscaper. So he could, really help us address
Yeah.
non-natives, for example.
Yeah, although we have to be careful in getting expertise because our staff is our expertise. And number one, we can't show disrespect for them, and we shouldn't be we ought to be conferring with them, not
Got it.
instructing them. So
Right.
that's a fine line to walk. But we need to be very respectful of our staff.
Yes.
Would it
I
be
think I was walking that line finally today when I was talking to him.
Would it be worthwhile, because of his background, to consider him as an alternate, to give him a shot for a year to see how he does?
Well, yeah, that could be a possibility.
And to maybe be able to glean some of that knowledge?
Actually, just another second on him is that my thinking was if we ever create a subcommittee to get volunteers together to actually work on the Parkland, on its problems, he would be perfect to head that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are we leaning towards Margaret and Cindy for voting members? What's the sense?
Yeah, I mean, we have Amy, I think would make a good alternate. We have Kindy, Brandon, Margaret, Richard. I'm pulling David out of it because his letter was minimal.
David, yes, with David too, he's he's active in the grounds and maintenance committee at the Highlands, but he doesn't contribute much, and sometimes the issues or objections or questions he brings up don't indicate a really good grasp of what we're trying to do. I'm a little bit puzzled by that. He's has a wealth of historical, knowledge and experience, but I'm not sure he would bring a lot of value to the committee or the commission.
I mean, that's my only, the thing that jumped out at me with Richard's letter is that, it's forestry and turfgrass management are, it seems like, I mean, forestry is a very nebulous thing, but to do turfgrass management and grounds management is a very different kind of landscaping than what we're trying to move in the direction of.
Yeah.
And like, it does feel like his experience would be very redundant with a lot of the public works staff in terms of having a lot of experience doing, turf maintenance, integrated pest management, and not that that's a bad thing to have another voice with that experience, but just that, it does feel like it overlaps a lot with what the guys that are here would have been doing for also 30 years.
Right.
Doing well.
Yeah.
Doing well, right. So do we pull Richard and possibly consider him for a subcommittee that starts discussing some things? Invite Kindy, and then either Margaret or Brandon, and I'll let you guys sort of look over them again. I know you, Lucy, know Margaret well. I think Brandon would also be very enthusiastic, but I think, they're both dealing with the same amount of knowledge. Brandon is young, by mid-40s, early 40s, up in the hills.
I'd like to diversify our community. I'd like to get more involvement from people who don't live in a certain segment.
Well, we have 2 Hills residents on the commission now, so we are looking pretty good. I don't know where, Kindy's where at?
He's on Trent.
He's on Trent.
Yeah.
Amy's on the Boulevard.
Not the boulevard.
Reading Boulevard. What?
She's on Wyomissing Boulevard.
Wyomissing Boulevard.
That is not the
Yeah, that is not the boulevard. She's on one of the, she's on the other boulevard.
And they're not
I don't know which
the
boulevard
house on
is which.
Trent. They're one of the ones on the
They're not the
other
house
side
on
of the
Trent.
street on Trent.
Oh my goodness.
Just to clarify that.
Alright, Kindy, we will offer a C2, Amy, we will offer an alternate C2, and then, I'm gonna leave it to you guys to decide Margaret or Brandon for a seat versus an alternate seat. And you never know what's gonna happen, somebody could bow down after a few months. Or they stick around.
I love that.
Or they stick around for years and never show no meeting. There's that.
When they're done,
Okay, now for the good chair.
I don't know. I like that Margaret has experience on nonprofit boards and that sort of thing. That's
Yeah.
definitely a plus
Yeah.
as far as communication, organization, delegation, and that kind of thing.
frustration.
Yeah, and like
Compromise, discussion, blah,
yeah.
blah. Okay.
I don't know. It's hard, passion is great, but it doesn't always come with, in both senses, it doesn't always come with,
Lucy, is Margaret in the Highlands or is she on Wayne?
She's not a Highlands resident,
Oh, okay.
no.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
Alright, do we wanna do Margaret then?
Sure.
Margaret it is, okay,
I'm in favor, yep.
okay. Okay, so I will offer seats, I'll run this by Jenks just so he knows, but he said it was fine, whoever I chose. I will offer seats to Kindy and Margaret and alternate seats to Brandon and Amy. And thank the other 2 for their letters of interest and tell them we would like to reach out to them for volunteer work if they're interested.
Can we talk about a backup plan?
Yes,
If one of the 2 permanent
seats, right.
turn us down,
Mm-hmm.
which alternate has preference to become, to step in?
That's a valid question.
Yeah, that is. I think you're talking about possible more experience versus more time availability. I think Amy may stretch herself kind of thin, but has more experience than Brandon.
I don't see us doing a whole lot outside of the meeting for a
Right.
while,
Yeah.
so it doesn't bother me.
Right.
Yeah, I would kind of lean that way too.
So I guess I lean toward Amy.
Yeah.
And then if we have a backup, we have an opening for alternate, we
should add Richard
Okay.
Yeah.
as the alternate.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Right, yeah,
Third
okay.
alternate. Yeah.
Right, let me write this down. Okay. Anything else on that topic? We're all in agreement on who we wanna bring on board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think this is the first time this has ever happened in a committee, like this open discussion and letters. It's happened with rec board a little bit,
I would
right?
say rec board
Yeah.
did it.
Okay, I'm glad we're here. For many years, it was just, you gotta know somebody to get in.
Yeah.
Yep, and not anymore, which is nice. Okay, so there's the letters we got, okay, is that everything?
No.
What else do we have?
Review of chapter 16.
I feel like we covered our part and it was gonna go over to the pool, it was gonna go over to Randy for all that kind of stuff.
But Randy did give comments.
Yeah,
He gave his input the last meeting.
The one thing I would ask is that I recently had to send a certified letter to a resident of Reading Boulevard who was placing debris and yard waste debris on borough property. And, you know, I went out, talked to the adjacent owner who was complaining about it, talked to Chris, prepared a strongly worded warning letter basically stating you have 5 days from receipt of the certified letter to get your stuff off our property and stop doing it in the future. And Chris suggested I put the penalty section in, which is effectively a joke when you look at the penalties in some of our other ordinances. Like basically the rec director can, hold on, let me find this, here.
So we need to beef up penalties.
I think so. Like, oh, you must stay out of this area for X number of days.
Right.
I mean, none of these really apply in this situation.
So what do you recommend?
Do we have something in there that specifically says leave nothing behind, like
Yeah,
no
so-
personal?
Yeah, so I mean,
But you're talking about what?
Oh, there's no
so-
littering. I
So
don't
what
think there's.
penalties do you want? Cause it's not like we took any out.
no, I mean, to me, it's adding something that it is up to the discretion of the rec director, do you wanna say code enforcement officer, borough manager, public works director, whoever you wanna pick to be someone other than, for some of these things, I don't know that the recreation director, like,
That's not scary enough.
well, that and, I mean, it used to be the Parks and Recreation Director. Currently, the way the job description reads, the rec director has nothing to do with the Parklands. So, to me, it needs to be not only another individual, but at the discretion of whoever that person is, and or in conjunction with discussion with the Park and Shade Commission, if it warrants bringing it here, additional penalties. And I do think it should be,
Can
I
I just
think
say
it
the
needs-
borough?
Well, I would think either Jim's position and or Michelle's.
normally we call out a specific person.
Then I would say borough manager.
But adding language along the lines of is subject to a fine of up to X amount of dollars, cause I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that gets the point across,
Right, and perhaps per day. for
like we
violation.
do in the others.
Yeah,
Like, what would be if we were leaving rubbish on the street and it never got removed?
Like under property maintenance
Property
code, it's a
maintenance
fine of
code.
up to $1,000 a day for every day the violation continues.
sounds good.
Then it should be the same, if you're leaving your rubbish on borough land, instead of you're leaving it there, if it was on your land, you get $1,000 a day. If it's on borough land, you get $1,000 a day, lose $1,000 a day.
We're not paying that.
Okay,
Wait, so what is
you get fined. He's leaving his debris on borough property, I'm assuming they're bordering
Which is,
parklands.
Yes.
They're
which is
big bordering
nuts because
parklands.
his is pickup, essentially, he's not saving anything by doing that.
Right.
So why?
Wow.
Well, I mean that, and I think there's some other things in here, like if you're interfering with or disrupting lawful recreational activity or failing to heed or obey a request of the rec director, I
Right.
think there should be stronger penalties for that.
So you can incur a penalty of up to $1,000 per day.
And I mean,
Not
we-
once per day.
Every
Per
day the
incident. Because if you're going from borough employee to borough employee, you don't get to be horrible to 10 people for $1,000 a day. I think it should be $1,000
Per incident.
per incident, yeah.
Well, I mean, how I would suggest doing this is we add and or language to the overall penalty section to include, we could still do all of, where is that? We could still do all of these things and fine you.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, money is, it does make more of an impression on people.
It's gotten a lot of people's attention on the code and rental side, I'll tell you that.
But should any of this be under the purview of the rec director, or should it just be borough manager?
No, I think a lot of it should be
Some
under
of
the
it.
purview of the rec director,
Okay.
because, you know,
It's pool stuff.
yeah, it's
The
pool
pool
stuff,
stuff
it's
for sure,
playground
yeah.
stuff.
Pool and playground, but not parkland.
But like hunt with the weapon, I don't think the rec director should be enforcing
No,
that.
no,
Like some of
right.
the wildlife stuff,
No.
camp out or sleeping overnight, I don't think that should go to the rec director.
No.
So, I mean, I'll take a look through this for further cleanup.
Yeah, for the authorized stuff, it should go to you. To be authorized.
Okay.
Does the title rec director have to be changed?
You mean based off where we're going with the job description? No, I mean, I think it still encompasses,
Okay, just asking, as long as we're cleaning up.
regarding the next agenda item, well, this is one of my more favorite meetings. I don't know that I like all of you enough to spend Thanksgiving with you, which is,
Yeah.
Is
Is that Thanksgiving? No, it's
Yeah.
the day before.
oh yeah, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's right, it's the day before,
Yeah,
however,
yeah,
Borough,
yeah.
that in Borough Hall typically closes at 12 the day before Thanksgiving. So I would propose moving it to the morning or a week earlier.
Yeah, can we
I'll be
move it?
traveling,
Yeah, can we move it earlier?
although I mean, it could participate by phone, but.
I think a lot of people are gonna have the same issue that day though. It's either they're leaving or they have family coming in. So as of now, we have nothing on the 26th, if we would move it to Tuesday, or the Wednesday before that, which would be the 20th.
I'll be traveling on Tuesday, but I could participate by phone.
Can we do it the week, can we move it up a week?
I'm fine with that, it's your call.
Yeah.